A thinly dressed girl with a pale face suddenly collapsed on a small town street. People nearby quickly called an ambulance. The girl was barely hanging on. As the nurse kept asking questions, she used all her strength to say one name, Sophie Giroux. At that moment, a woman was teaching in a classroom when a police officer called her outside. Eve told her that a girl had collapsed on the street the day before and was in critical condition, now undergoing surgery. The woman looked confused, not understanding what this had to do with her. Then the officer said the girl's name was Alice. The woman froze. Alice was her daughter who had been kidnapped 11 years ago. There had been no news since then. Now, she had suddenly come back on her own. The woman was so overwhelmed she burst into tears. She immediately told her husband the news. The whole family rushed to the hospital. The drive felt incredibly long. Their daughter had been found, and as a father, Sam had mixed emotions. The police told him that when Alice arrived at the hospital, her appendix had burst and she had nearly died. They slowly approached the hospital room and peeked inside. Even though they had tried to prepare themselves, knowing she must have suffered a lot, they were still shocked when they saw her. The girl was skin and bones, her face ghostly pale, and her body covered in bruises. She looked extremely weak. It was hard to imagine what she had gone through. When the father saw the tattoo on the girl's body, he knew without a doubt that she was his daughter. Then the girl slowly opened her eyes. That one word, Dad, was something he had never dared to dream of hearing again. Seeing his daughter in such a broken state was more than he could bear. He reached out to hold her hand, but Alice suddenly pulled away, clearly afraid. The mother felt deeply guilty for yelling at her in the past because of the tattoo. Seeing how much her mother missed her, Alice couldn't hold back her tears either, though her eyes were still empty. She looked over at her younger brother standing nearby and softly called him by his childhood nickname. No one could tell if it was from weakness or from trauma, but Alice said she wanted to be alone, that she couldn't handle everything just yet. Meanwhile, Eve called Mike to tell him Alice had returned. But the bigger news was that when Alice was semi-conscious, she had mentioned the name Sophie Giroux. Mike was stunned when he heard that. Sophie was also a girl who had been kidnapped about 12 years ago. In fact, it was the last case Mike had worked on before retiring. Eve suspected the same person might have taken both girls. She asked Mike to go over the old case files and look for any similarities. Sophie's case had haunted Mike for years. There weren't enough clues back then, and the investigation hit a dead end. Sophie's mother had taken her own life in front of Mike after being unable to handle the grief. If it really was the same kidnapper, then maybe Sophie was still alive. The next day, Alice had recovered a little and agreed to speak with the police. She calmly explained how she had been kidnapped. Her face stayed blank as she described the details. Her father couldn't bear hearing it and walked away to the bathroom, where he broke down in tears. Eve asked if Sophie had been held with her. Alice said sadly that Sophie was very weak, and the man who had taken them hadn't given her food in a long time. She had promised Sophie she would come back for her. That information was incredibly important. Then the doctors told the family something even more shocking. During the surgery, they found signs that Alice had given birth. Her mother was in disbelief, unable to imagine what kind of conditions her daughter had lived through. A day later, Alice asked to be discharged from the hospital. Her mother felt she needed more time and psychological help and wanted her to stay longer. But her father insisted that she had suffered enough and what she needed most now was to go home. That night, they completed the paperwork and brought Alice back to the house she had once known. Alice still showed little emotion. She just kept staring at a photo of her and her brother from when they were kids. That night, her mother quietly opened the bedroom door and saw Alice sleeping on the floor. Why would she do something so strange?